I am the best coach of me, period. I do not need to outsource how to motivate me to get up and move. That said, I can get better, I can do other things, but every morning I think about me and how the heck I'm gonna get up and do something today of merit.
I'm Mark Cook, president of Windfall Partners. We get leaders unstuck and thriving with their teams. After turnarounds as chief executive, the largest ever studies of award-winning leaders, a New York Times bestseller, and 5-star keynotes, I've coached 4,000 client wins at top brands. My Bold Encounters is an advanced system for leading. First, powerful steps on a path forward. Second, problem-solving skills that beat obstacles fast. Now, lead with Bold Encounters today.
Welcome to Bold Encounters. Today, I have a gentleman that has built 25,000 meaningful relationships.
It's a lot.
Yeah, Stephen Minix. How are you?
I'm well on a Friday, doing well. Things are good. How about yourself?
I'm so excited to talk to you because you're like the ultimate optimist. And I love your story about turning from teacher to tech. And you're now a viable, real technologist after teaching thousands and dealing and working with thousands and thousands of parents. But you know what, in your current career and your current life, I love how you focus on being a master mentor to the people that you work with. And I gotta say, I love that you're a dad of 3 girls, because I'm a dad of 5 boys, and thank goodness we're both alive and evening out the human race. Yeah. In fact, I want to start, if you don't mind, Stephen, I want to start with how you grew up. Tell us a little bit, just for a couple of minutes, about your upbringing when things were great.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me, by the way. I grew up in Spanaway, Washington. So just a military, gritty little town about 30 miles south of Seattle. Go Seahawks. And biracial family. Black father from Houston, Air Force. Mom, white lady from Ohio, Air Force. They settled up in the Seattle area, or the Pacific Northwest. And just a great experience growing up. Just work hard, recycle, try hard, say thank you, be respectful. But youth sports was a massive part, and we didn't have a lot of money, but we never were struggling. You know what I mean? And I think I was rich with a lot of cool experiences with sport and community. And my dad was a coach, retired early from Air Force. And so just an unbelievable place to grow up that I also knew I wanted to leave when I was 18. So I got what I needed to get out of it as far as growing up, but I knew I had to flap my wings beyond Spanaway. And but I joke that I'm one of Spanaway's finest, and I'm proud of that.
So tell me, one of the sentences caught me, the sentence where you said, I knew I wanted to get away. Tell me what happened that was rough, or what happened to cause that. Tell me about that.
I had a great experiences, right? I was involved in every way in school president, captain of teams, all the things. I really loved it. But I also was the third child of 3. And so in the elementary, middle, and high school are on the same 1 mile long street. So you kind of saw your life every day in front of you for 13 years. And I just kind of knew there was more out there. And a lot of folks where I grew up, unfortunately at the time, weren't so focused on changing the world. They were kind of worried about making some money to pay the bills at home. And I had parents that were like, you're going to be the president. You're going to do things. You're going to do whatever you want, and when that's poured into you, you kind of take that mantle and say, well, I got to go flap my wings. Where am I going to go? And then, along the way, there were some pretty dark things that happened when I was a kid, and there's no way to gracefully talk about it. My dad died of a very rare disease when I was in 7th grade, and he had it when I was born in 79. So for the first 11 years of my life, as soon as he could start to talk to me about things, he would tell me, yo, I'm dying, so you need to know how to do these things. I'm dying, so you need to know how to. So I had a very, very direct, grown man, black coffee conversations as a kid, all while being raised to be whatever I wanted to be. So I think that galvanized some thoughts of once dad's gone, what am I going to do? And I knew I couldn't stay home and become the man I wanted to be. And my mom knew that. She's like, you're going to go do things. And so I use that pain to kind of help keep me focused on what's out there, and then keep climbing and go figure some things out. So I've kind of really focused on that. And now at 40, almost 46, turned 46 in a couple of weeks, I've kind of used this throughout my life to really, really push.
Yeah.
So that's kind of why that's some of the impetus to leave. And I love going back, though. I tell you that.
It's still home a little bit.
Oh, absolutely. Every day I still think about moms and sister and everybody back home, and just the collection of really, really quality humans that wrapped their arms around me after my dad passed, that like helped build me. And I'll never, ever disparage that part of the world, because it helped build me.
Yeah. Well, I recognize that 2/3 of my audience haven't really grown up without a dad, but I happen to be one of them, and that did, like you. And so I'm very curious. I'm just going to briefly ask you one or two questions.
Sure.
We won't cover this too much, but
Sure.
so you're young, and I didn't have the experience where for years, from the age of understanding and choosing, moral choice, logical choice, your dad's coming to you and projecting and telling you he's leaving this earth soon.
Yeah.
What's that like as a little kid, having your dad say something so abrupt like that?
Yeah. It's all you know. But also, my dad was it's like a superhero, right? Like, it was this Southern black, like, just military, thoughtful. He gardened, he cooked, all these cool things. But he also was a big, strong man, and so loving. And so it wasn't fear-based. It was more like, I'm pouring into you. I want you to know these things. I felt like it was the cheat code to life. What my dad was giving me was like, this is how you approach that. This is how you do that. And I know I didn't understand all those things at that time. I mean, I was only, 5, 6, 7. He passed when I was in 7th grade. But those lessons today, as a dad and as a man, as a professional, you better believe I dig in that toolbox. And that's why I think I'm unique. Not because, obviously, you had an experience, it sounds like somewhat similar, but I've taken that and put it into like who I am, and realizing what matters and what doesn't, right? And those kind of things. But I was proud of it. Now, back then it was scary, it was tough. And the other thing is, he's the same name. He's Stephen Minix. He's big Stephen Minix. And so when I go see his gravesite, I look at his name, my name on the ground. And so there's this sobering piece of it that's like, it will end one day. What are you going to do until then? Wow. And so that's what my dad, in my opinion, really helped me understand. And my mom too. Wilma, my mother, wonderful human, like, really was a part of that too. But my dad, I mean, I exist because of a lot of the opportunities to develop that he poured into me, because he was courageous enough to say it in that moment, because I couldn't imagine talking to my daughters about that. I couldn't imagine it, but he did. And now I so thankful for it, because it prepared me for life, and like the real side of life, and the other side of life that's not so, Pollyannish. And although I am an optimist, how you opened, I also understand the ebb and flow of life and that rhythm that comes with it. And I'm so thankful that I got to experience that with him. Wow. I really am.
Yeah, I mean, what powerful thoughts come into my mind. Like, you have the same name as him, and I'm not named after my father except for my last name, but all of us have some relatives that we looked up to, at least one somewhere. Sure. Even if we were adopted, and we have to find someone a little more distant. We can find someone, and to project ourselves next to that headstone or something, and get serious about life. Wow, that's a powerful thing. You have the name, you just stare right at it. Wow, that's a fascinating thought. I've never had to have someone come up and say, the end is nigh, and I'm going to give you some advice you need to listen to. That's amazing and crazy and thought provoking. What do you think its place was? You just explained at a high level, but you got a very specific philosophy where you move from pain to progress. Tell me about your philosophies there, and their roots, and what they are.
Sure, and I'm an old high school PE teacher, basketball coach, so I got a lot of those kind of phrases, but none of them are throwaway and feel goods. They're actually what I feel in the moment. And perpetual positivity pays off is something I've always thought, right? And because what is the opposite? When you think about like pain to progress, I get it. It's going to hurt, right? Okay, I've named that. It's going to hurt. Well, do I want it to hurt forever? Hope not. Nobody likes to persist in pain. I don't think, even if it's subconscious or consciously. And for me, if pain is the feeling that you feel when despair and physical and all these things, and progress is getting out of that, then why not allocate the time to the progress part? Because I can't change the pain. I can't change why it hurt. I can learn to deal with it. I can use it to help me develop what I call like the professional patina to exist in life. Is I've taken those steps and those things that have happened and that pain of death, and it fuels how I try to dad and try to be a husband and try to be a buddy, try to be a homeboy to my friends. It informs all that because it reminds me what to focus on. And I don't always do it right, but it reminds me that like the other side of this is a lot more dark and not fun than working through the pain to get to the other side. And so whether that's mental, whether that's physical, whether that's relational, go at it directly. Yeah. Stop taking these long circuitous routes to address the issues that you're facing. And that's kind of the way that I've tried to take it. And it sounds like I'm some like, I don't know, guru or something. No. It is just at bats daily about how to approach things with positivity and focus on that, not the other side. Control what you can. And I think the pain to progress helps me stay focused on that. And I've seen that in my professional and personal life. And it seems to help me.
Yeah, one of the reasons that I thought about having you on is because yours just reality. It's not motivation alone. It's interesting though. I've had a lifelong dislike of the word motivation because I've been in businesses that people characterized as in the motivation world, and then I do some speaking when people ask me to speak. I'm a 5-star Vistage speaker or close to it, and do some other speaking for companies. And people always say, oh, he's a motivational speaker. And I think of the person with the amputated leg that's done 7 Ironman, as the motivational speaker. I have some research and some action to bring. But so I've had this kind of negative relationship with the word motivation for a lot of my career. And about 8 months ago, someone said it to me, and I thought about it, and I thought, I need to come to grips with this. And I looked up the etymology or the history of the word motivation and the roots, and I did a little study for a half hour on the word motivation, and I was surprised that the word a reason to act, the word act is deep in all that. And so, like all words, the definitions morph and they multiply. And so we don't think of motivation, but it's a beautiful historical meaning. What a motivation or a motive is a reason to act. Take steps, move your hands, type something, pick up the phone, do. And so I think that's what I hear in you is like, you are motivating. You've been there. I'm going to tell you what to do because this isn't ideas. This is times with dad, times with action that had to be taken. And I think it's great. There's another characteristic that has developed in you that really attracted me to have you on the show. And that is that I think the idea of going from awful to optimist, and you're like the ultimate optimist.
Optimist Prime, let's get it.
Yeah, yes. Tell us about that feeling and attitude, not just the action. Tell us about how you feel and what you do and how do you control your emotions and thoughts that way. Dig into that for a second.
Oh, I will, but one thing I want to say is as a little kid, I used to write I wanted to be a motivational speaker, the president, or the point guard of the Sonics. So like those are the 3 things I wanted to be in my life. And so, I do understand a lot of the motivation kind of cynicism. I kind of understand that a little bit. I think about inspiration a lot, right? I think inspiration, motivation kind of are related. But to your question directly, and the joke I made about Optimist Prime, I never really played with Transformers, but I loved that name as a kid. I thought it was so neat. Even before I really understood what optimism was. But it goes back to the pain to progress thing. It's like if you don't believe it's possible, the likelihood of it manifesting is I don't know the exact data point on it, but it's a lot less likely to happen, right? So just by positive self-talk and like getting yourself to believe in what you think you can go do and coaching yourself up, I am the best coach of me, period. I do not need to outsource how to motivate me to get up and move. That said, I can get better, I can do other things, but every morning I think about me and how the heck I'm going to get up and do something today of merit, period. Whether that's try to be chiller with my kids, try to be a little bit more receptive to the conversations with my wife, try to be like, sometimes it's that, other times it's, I'm about to move and I'm going to get loose in this space, I'm going to write, I'm going to research, whatever it is. But like, you got to get yourself to believe in your own ability to perform. And if you don't, you're putting a weight vest on yourself that's going to make it more difficult to eventually get to whatever height you're trying to get to or wherever you're trying to get to. So do I want to put on all the extra weight of self-doubt and like cynicism and all these things that do nothing but harm? Or do I want to put some more time into what happens if this goes right, or when this goes right, how am I going to turn my stereo up in my car when I'm driving out of that parking lot to just be like, yo, you just did it. That's the way I move. That is how I get anything over. Like when I get stuck, that's what I think about. What's the song I'm going to play when I drive out of this parking lot after I delight? What's the meal my wife and I are going to eat tonight off the back of this deal I just secured? Because I know we're going to eat in a different way. What's the vacation we're going to take in 6 months? I think about these things as it pertains to keeping me optimistic, which keeps me focused, which keeps me driven, which goes back to all these other things. The strategy, the calculations about where and why. That's what optimism is for me. And I feel for anybody who gets up every morning and doesn't start there. That's how I try to mentor. That's how I try to coach. That's how I try to inspire, is not to be Pollyannish and get you to be fired up to do something you're not prepared to do. But sometimes it's just a simple nugget, a simple jewel to drop that might get you thinking different, right? And I think that's what I try to focus on as it pertains to optimism for me, is because once you think it's not possible, it's not possible, right? That's kind of the way it works. So living in the optimism, but trying to avoid. I've heard the phrase toxic positivity before, and I kind of roll my eyes at it because
terrible phrase.
But it's just one of those things. It's weird, right? Yeah, go ahead. But you get it.
Yeah, that
it's
should
just
be
a weird
illegal.
Phrase.
Go ahead. Tell me your thoughts on it.
I can think about the person that wrote it when they exited the companies that we were working together in, and I took umbrage with it for a while because maybe there was something in it that I didn't understand, but also like once you start to think that cynicism, contrarian, not for purpose, obstruction, sand in gears, stone thrower. Once you think of all those things as like a driver, I don't even want to get up. I'm going to go over here where we're like, well, what are the opposite of all those things? Curiosity, thoughtfulness, discernment, right? Respect. Well, those are better ways. I think about transparency and accountability, same thing. It's like they feel different, right? And so why not take the route that you think is more germane to the way you move? For me, that is optimism and possibility.
Yeah, well, I love the two together that you just said. That list of this negative set that you just rattled off, they're just ways to make you feel like you're kind of better than the situation or even other people.
Absolutely.
And those positive ones, they're all a little bit of work, at least mental work, which takes the energy to fuel the brain.
Absolutely.
And it's a little bit of a piece of work that you have to do. But I love reaching back to your past and thinking about what you said about your dad and the mood and the action that it caused. Like, Well, yeah, but you have to do a teeny bit of work, because if you want to have that dinner, you want to have that feeling at the end of the day after those successes that you're having. It's a beautiful set of ideas that are chained together. So you have this terrible thing happen in life, and you gain these little mini lectures with all of the importance in the world, including death, for your childhood, and it causes you to think, I've got to focus on the progress, not just the pain. And the pain is instructive. If you don't have pain, then most people don't do anything. So pain is instructive, and it helps you get the progress. And so you adopted that, and you started getting out of this and working through life, and you decided to become Optimist Prime. And so tell us, let's move forward chronologically using some of these, and tell me, after your childhood, as you started your work life, what was your life's work in the beginning?
Sure. I went to Pepperdine in Malibu and had a great time there. And I went to be a sports medicine major, but I'd blown out my knee the second time. And I was in a therapy space, and I was like, I don't know about this. So I took a professor had said something about, you should check out the elementary school. There's a work study opportunity in the PE classes. So I went down there like the next day, got my job routed to that work study, and then changed my major 2 days later. So I became a kinesiologist, a PE teacher. And so Locke High School, South Los Angeles, Watts, loved every second of it. Got there in 2002, late 2002, girls basketball coach, girls softball coach, PE teacher, and then eventually boys baseball assistant, and then varsity boys basketball coach. Then athletic director, assistant principal, adjunct professor in some spaces. I just thought education was just the coolest thing. I loved it. I loved everything about it. And that's where I spent a lot of my time, was in the education space. Eventually ran after school programs in athletics for a large school district in LA. And really, really enjoyed the opportunity to kind of focus on how do you get resources and additional support for all the things in school life for kids that don't happen in the classroom. And so that's where I started to get this entrepreneurial idea of like, oh, there's more here to like help kids. How can we do it? We were under-resourced, so we had to write a bunch of grants. All these other things happen. And but that's where I started to see the dot connecting. Mm-hmm. I've always been a connector, but I started to understand a little bit of like, philanthropy funds these programs, grants fund these programs, priorities of school districts are here. I started to understand the machine of what I didn't really understand, which was, I thought we're all here lined up to help kids. Like that was the objective. You know what I mean? So in that, I've really put a real career together of focusing on all things education and youth development, sport-based youth development, etc. And I really enjoyed it. It was a blast, but it was tough. It was tough. Not tough like, what was me tough? Tough like, this work doesn't, you can't delay this. You can't kick this down 6 months and say, I'll get to that later. It was urgent. That's what I loved.
Yeah. Wow. Well, we're going to get some very specific advice from you in just a minute, but I love what you learned there. It's amazing to me that you picked the easiest place in the world and the simplest place to educate, which is in the cities of Los Angeles.
Beautiful place, man. I gotta be honest. It was a beautiful place.
Not an easy set of school districts, though. No.
Sure. But if I'm being candid, I live in a pretty posh part of San Diego right now, and these school districts have similar things, but more resources, right? Yeah. So I think anytime you get collections of people together and trying to do a lot of stuff urgently, there's always going to be that, which is where I like to kind of always sit in, because I'm pretty decent at the connecting and translating space, getting folks to kind of sit and be simmered. But you're right, there was some challenges, darn sure.
Yeah. Well, and I know that you made another transition a bit. Tell us about what your feelings were that made you progress again.
Sure. I'd say about 2008-ish. I'm running after school programs in athletics I'm not running it yet. I'm about to. But we had a bunch of money secured, grant money, that was running all these after school programs. I then take over that role as the administrator a couple years later, and am charged with trying to renew those grants. Well, the market crash in 2008 started to dictate the available grant money that was coming out of the federal government that was going to pay for 21st century programs for kids. I'll cut the fat on this. I lost $8 million in grant funds one day.
Wow.
One day that I was using to run after school programs for kids in Los Angeles.
Wow.
Now, I was a department of one. Here's the really gross thing, I'll tell you. This ain't a dimple. That's a terrible sentence, but you get it. This is not a dimple. This is a scar from me getting a tumor removed from underneath my jaw. I'm all good, but it was a tumor. This is how gross the space was at the time. I'm laid up on a surgical table with 2 cell phones open because the grant announcement's supposed to come out just so happened to be the day that I'm going into get this thing removed from my face. So I asked to make it a local, not a knock me out. And as luck would have it, I got a text from a friend of mine, Francis, that said, "Did you see the announcement?" And I'm looking down on my phone, the doctor's touching my face, and I'm like, and it was just a clean sweep, lost. And
holy cow. All at the same
I
time.
don't know how to explain to you how even as an optimist, how like gut punching that was, because obviously you're waiting to get this done and walk out, and so I'm bandaged. Now I'm walking out thinking about how am I going to go talk to these parents, these school district wide of parents, 12,000 kids at the time, and the reality is there wasn't a lot of help from the team of the school district I was working at to go face those parents. So I had to go do this road show where I would have these parent meetings at each school and just get roasted by folks saying, "What happened?" And then having to own that. Yeah, and having to own that and say, "This is what happened. This is how it happened. This is why. And this is what I'm going to do to try to fix it in the meantime so that we can get back to whatever. And this is what I'm going to do to support your kid." And it just taught me so much about who's on your team, who's going to help you, what does team mean, what does responsibility mean, and then the pain to progress part of my life is how you're going to backfill that resource to make sure these kids can do what they got to do to have an unbelievable experience as best as you can provide it in their time in school. And so then after the wallowing for a couple of days, we figured out how to fight it and how to try to backfill and partnerships and all these things. Because what's the answer going to be? Sit back and sit in the pain, or figure out the progress? And so got really nice with partnerships. Understood how to tell the story and get folks to help. So to me, that led me to this idea. And I missed one piece of this, which is
go for it.
We lost the money because the state of California Department of Education said you lack the effective data strategy to articulate the outcomes you aspire to have, something to that effect. I said, what? In after school programs? So, it'll piss me off a little bit. And the athlete in me kind of was like, yo, this is whack. This is terrible. Like, doesn't make any sense. At the time, my wife had a friend that had a family office that was looking to kind of put some resources into helping nonprofits and sport-based development programs track attendance and data, and because they were giving out money and tired of buying more soccer goals. Like, what's the impact of this giving? And I said, yo, wait a second. If we talked about how this could pertain to nonprofits and others, we might have something. So 2014, we started talking about some ideas, and then he founded Sport Up, our original version of our company. That's now UpMetrics, and we kind of live in this world of helping philanthropy, nonprofits, and impact investors use data and storytelling to better work together and basically avoid having to lay on a damn surgery table to ward off $1 million cuts. And so again, pain to progress.
Pain
everywhere I've
to
ever
progress.
been.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Perfect example of that. Pain to progress. Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, having to deal with that and doing what you're doing. Tell us, before we get to your company
Sure.
and
Sure.
talk about that, tell me a little bit before we leave the family all the way.
Sure.
You had to be an amazing coach as a father of 3 girls, and just tell me, you had to be amazing. Tell me about that experience and the relationships you built. We're gonna talk about the how-to on building connections and the exciting part of who you are at the end too. But tell me about that part.
About specifically on the parenting
coaching,
side, or
your coaching
the coaching
line,
side? Yeah. Look, I mean, if I was being honest, I have a baseball here. There's basketballs back there. They're from coaching. There's like, it's such a big part of my life that I don't do anymore because I wanted to raise a family. Right? It's tough to buy a house on a public school teacher's salary with coaching stipend in LA. And so I had to make some changes and step away from the sideline. And it wasn't only from that; it was because I wanted to have a family and raise my kids. And if I'm on a sideline with your kids, it's tough for me to be on my own kid's sideline. So, but I love coaching. I wake up every morning thinking about coaching. Every morning. Not because I don't like what I'm doing. So once things do what they need to do and I get back to a sideline, I can't wait. But the opportunity to be in people's lives doing something they are choosing to do that they don't have to do, that, my friend, is I think why I'm put on this planet mostly is to be in that space with them.
Yeah.
Is in that, whether that's adult or kid, it's when people are choosing an activity, basketball, baseball, wrestling, whatever it is, opening a business, whatever it is. And then they want to talk to you about it. Then they want to talk to you like about why they're choosing to do it and how they're worried about it. And you can, with a couple thoughts, help them start to think through how they can approach it and how they can run through it if they want to, or pause and be thoughtful about it. That's where I feel like I see like chess, not checkers. I'm able to see out in front. And I think one of the things I just love it. And the amount of Instagram notes I get from my players that are now almost 40, and the texts I get, Coach, I just had a kid. Coach, I just had, these feelings are just there's no other way to say it. They're just so dope. They're just so amazing. And now as a professional, doing that with people in their work capacities, or when I'm talking to nonprofit partners of ours about how they can kind of persevere, build up their patina. It's the same lessons I learned at Locke High School, 325 East 111th Street, right? The address, I remember everything about it. Why? How it felt in those gyms. I always talk about going back to the lab. The lab for me is wherever you choose to be. And for me back then, it was coaching basketball. Now the lab is social entrepreneurship, right? And you just get you're just lucky to be in people's lives in that capacity. And people that do it for their own motivations, I don't get it, but it's always fueled me. And now mentorship, oh man, this is my jam. This is what I believe in.
It's so great. I think it's remarkable. I can't even imagine. I have with all sons and just my own sports being, football and rugby, and
sure.
It seems like Mars to me to go coach girls. But it seems the coach, regardless of who you're coaching, the parents occasionally are tricky. I bet you're amazing with the tricky parents. I'll bet you handled that pretty well.
Yeah, well, interesting enough, the unfortunate part of the school I worked at is there wasn't a ton of parent involvement. There was a lot of parent interest, but not a ton of parent involvement.
That makes sense.
And so a lot of the parents were like, I trust you, do what you do, and great. I was 22 when I started coaching. I had 18-year-old varsity basketball girls, right? So and then I coached boys varsity at 25. And, these kids are not too far away from me, but the parents, the belief in me with their kids, unrivaled. But I didn't have kids. I joke with my wife. I'm like, why did they let us teach before we had kids? Not that you have to have kids to be a teacher.
Right.
But in hindsight, now after being a parent, I look at it so much differently. Very similar to how I used to. Mm-hmm. But there's some things that I would key on different now as a 45-year-old coach than I would as a 22. Because I didn't have enough life experience to understand what really the issues were, or what the trigger was, the motivation was, or what the concern was, or what the focus was. But I always coached beyond the scoreboard. That's the difference between me and most. Some coaches are maniacal about outcomes related to scoreboard and championships. I was always preparing young people for that handshake in life. Always. Never deviated. We gonna win along the way. And that's on you to decide if we win or not. Not on coach. We gonna prepare, we're gonna be ready. I'm gonna build you up, I'm gonna help you, I'm gonna liberate you to go do what you gotta do. That said, those outcomes, they're collective, but I'm preparing you for that 25-year-old executive handshake. I want you to look them in the eye with confidence, candor, ready to rock. Whatever it is you want to do, I want you ready for that. And we're going to get through that in our hoops, in our basketball, in our softball. And it wasn't like I took business principles to coaching. No, it's the exact opposite. I coached them to be prepared for what they wanted in life. Yeah. And then now, when they change what they want to focus it on, they can take those lessons and apply them. I want to be a tech person. I want to be a blank. I want to be you got the skills, go build on it. You know how to do it, rinse and repeat, practice, prepare, etc. And so to me, that's the thing. And now often I see all these people opening coaching practices and consulting practices and all this stuff. And I'm like, wow, this is like PE teaching 101, but in the business circuit. It's beautiful in my mind.
Yeah, I want to ask you at the end. We're gonna put off this, but we're gonna ask you at the end about some hardcore actionable items about how to start a company like you have, I love this idea that you just said about be prepared for your 25-year-old executive handshake. I love that idea. And what that encompasses to me is all that you've said, but also just, sometimes you should be the executive at 25. And those two go together, those two ideas. But I want to hear some this week action items, but not yet. What I first want to do is I want to hear about your starting of this company. It's not easy to start anything, even if it's just a simple one-person consulting firm.
Sure.
But tell me about that journey quick.
Sure. Big shout out to Drew Payne and the Payne family. They out of San Francisco. They're the ones that Drew gave me the shot, and I don't mean that as a kiss the ring. I mean that I think the world needs duos. I think you need Batman and Robin. I think you need collection of people to be successful, and then you build from there. But with his idea back in the day of using data and information, and then my idea of trying to say like, well, could we aim it at some of these social programs? And then obviously their capital stack allowed us to move, and my social impact Rolodex helped us to marry those two things together. 2015, September 1st, we launched the early version of what we were doing. And I was tasked with like going around and seeing if there's a there. Basically knocking on doors of school districts and going to all my programs that I knew and seeing if we helped you do X, Y, and Z, would y'all be into that? And then slowly building that up. No revenue gen, none of that stuff for a while. It was just go figure it out. I'm like, damn, that's my job? Yo, yes, let's do it. You know what I mean? And I had to learn along the way. I tell a story oftentimes. I didn't know what a P&L was for a year into our company. And I'm not, look, man, I got 2 degrees. I'm a sharp tack. I'm not but I just, my business before was education and young people. Yeah. Right? Yeah. But it's not hard to learn these other sides of things. I just had applied my skills this way. And now I got to get over here and understand, profit, loss, burn rate, revenue, all these other terms that to this day aren't sexy to me. Because they're just parts of the machine. They're key parts. But just like graduations aren't my favorite part of teaching, right? Like they're part of it. They're just a part of it. But what I started to learn in the process was as we started to see that there was a there, well, then I went and found this guy in Chicago, Vinay, to come on board. And I'm like, yo, this is what we're trying to do. What do you think? I'm in. Right. Really? And you're like, oh, well, there's 3 of us now. Then we started to kind of, and there was some more people, like it started to kind of to grow. And it's still growing. We're still a startup trying to figure out our place and our market fit and all the work we're doing. But I know the type of work we're doing is resonating, and it's starting to grow. And I have a big old smile on my face, even in this difficult business climate that is 2025 for most. And I think once you start to believe in what you're doing enough and get clear on what it is that you're trying to do, then other people, it's easier for them to get on board with you. And we've had hiccups, we still have hiccups, but whenever you're trying to blaze trails and create new market, there's some of that comes with it. Like you have to be willing to fall forward and reflect and be curious and be critical and grow. And so that's kind of where we're at now, and it's a lot of fun, I'll tell you that.
Yeah, I in my practice I talk about leadership in teams and as a CEO of multiple teams. The typical 5 to 10 teams that you have to lead. I talk about it as orchestration. It's my favorite word for describing leadership. Is you got to orchestrate. And if you dive in a couple of episodes, I won't repeat it here, but in a couple of episodes I've talked about how I've interviewed those directors of major organizations that are orchestras and how it actually happens, where you have the string section and then the trumpet section, and you have all these different groups that are teams, And it's both a reality and a metaphor, and I just love it. But what I love about your story is you had to go recruit all the musicians first. You said the phrase knocking on doors, and you went knocking on doors, and that is so frightening to people. And they think it's only salespeople that have to pick up a phone or knock on doors. They think it's social media marketing now, and maybe some emails that are ill-advised sequences of spam, and it's not. It's still knocking doors and meeting people and getting eye to eye if you're doing something big, right? It's the 25-year-old executive handshake that you've got to accomplish, right?
You have to. And where do I learn all that? Balling, playing sports.
Yeah.
You know why? Because there's a positive and a negative outcome to every game. You either win or you lose. You either do what you want or don't. Whatever the case is, there's immediate up or down depending on what your goals were going into it. And to me, that exercise in mitigating failure, right? Hall of Fame baseball player, you bat 320 of your career, you go to the Hall of Fame, that's 3.2%. Or you know what I mean? That's like not that successful. Like a third of the time you're successful. And you go to the Hall of Fame, so you understand that other that other side of it, the other 70% becomes failure mitigation and using it to fuel you. And what did I hear? What was the objection? Why? And not to be nosy, to be persistent and to understand and to be curious and take good notes and be reflective and learn. Like you got to do that. Otherwise, the next door you knock on, you're going to repeat the same weirdness that you got the last one. They're like, get off my porch or whatever. You know what I mean? You're like, I see you, and so you have to understand what is the position, what are you trying to do, and how do you position yourself? For me, I've built a crazy good Rolodex in serving people and doing good work and not extracting from folks. Now it pays dividends when I put out the text or the call or the email or the LinkedIn note. Folks respond because they know I'm coming to them with something of merit, not to extract. And I think that is a lesson that a lot of people struggle with in life, is to understand that like what you did way back here does have an impact on what you're gonna try to do over here. It doesn't always marry you to that, but if you've done it right, you can use that as some of the equity you bring into wherever you go, right? Yeah. I love telling people, check the tape. Call anybody that's ever worked with me and ask them about me. Ask. I don't care. I'll give you whatever Rolodex you want to look at. Call them. Say, did you ever work with Stephen? They're going to give you about the same thing. Tons of energy, work hard, has a lot of fun, great person, maybe a little bit above his skis sometimes on his ego, but he's working on that. You're not going to get many people saying anything other than that. Tries hard, cares about people. And those qualities are evergreen, in my opinion. Those things go wherever business you go, whatever life you live, and it takes a career of life to build that up, and you can mess it up quickly, and I don't want to do that. Right, I want to continue to feed that way of showing up in this world, to respect the name that came before me and the mama that made me and the sister and brother that I grew up with and my wife and my 3 daughters now. Like, it all matters how you show up and how you execute. And if you don't put that into your energy and what you do, what are you doing? Like, I don't know another way. And so I'm living that truth daily and trying to make that as thoughtful and palatable for folks as possible, but also being honest to myself always.
Yeah, it's beautiful. It makes me think of a couple of things. It makes me think of a time when we were doing some research. We were looking into what people love most in life. And, they were not shocking things, but we wanted to know the truth, because there are a million things to love in life if you want. And we went through all the secondary research we could find, that people had done rigorous studies where they hooked people up to heart rate monitors and skin temperature monitors and fMRI machines, and they exposed them to things like words and pictures and scenarios, and they literally measured the physiology and the psychology of the people and how they reacted, both positive and negative. One test, for example, at the time there were 5,000 words in the Microsoft Word dictionary, and so they took those 5,000 most common words and they exposed people to them. But the pictures and the scenarios are actually more interesting in the video that they did. But what is interesting is one of them is rest and recovery. Like, there's an instinct that we have to be lazy and take it easy and sit on the couch and things. And the insight in that study that's so simple but yet powerful that I gained, that is what you're talking about, is that's a need. Yes, but it should be last. There's 11 other more important, more primary cardinal things that you should be pursuing, including relationships and connection, like you're an expert at, and 10 other things besides those two. But that should come first. The rest and recovery is built to come after. That's what our physiology and psychology want to have happen, not go first. The other couple of thoughts that you're spurring in me is, I'd love your thoughts in detail about the how-to on this too. You know, if I pick apart what you just said and the great ways you say it, you've got to be prepared for a 25-year-old executive handshake. Then you have to have as many of those as you can. Then behind the handshake, after the handshake, you've got to make life between you and that person matter a lot afterwards. And is that, if we boil it down and oversimplify it, that's kind of the effort in a career, would you say?
Yeah, I would say so. The only thing I'd push a little bit on is the rest and recovery piece. Any good athlete understands rest and recovery is as important as preparation, perseverance, training, right? So like, two things can be true. I joke with my wife, we just got back from a trip from Hawaii. I'm an international man of leisure. As soon as I'm done working, you better believe
you're doing it.
I know really, really well how to kick it. The hot tub, the hammock, the gardening, because that is a key piece of the balance that I think I bring to my life, right? And so whatever that looks like for people, it may be voracious reading, it may be whatever, but whatever that recovery piece is, I think about that as a daily practice. But it's got to be balanced to what you're saying. Like,
it can't come chronologically first.
Yeah, you can't lead with rest always, and then eventually get to the work,
first.
Right? Yeah, right. So yeah, I do jive with that. But on the other piece is, it's the follow up, right? One of the things I try to tell people to think about is, like, it's one thing to meet you in a moment. Mm-hmm. Are you curious about me beyond the moment? If so, you'll reach out to me. You'll ask me. I do this. One of the sessions I've given in the past in philanthropy was talking about date the grantee, right? And folks are like, what does that mean? I'm like, when you're married, you approach your conversation with your wife or husband or whoever different than probably when you were courting them, right? You'll drive to their car and put flowers on their car when you're dating, right?
Yeah.
You'll put flowers on the table when she gets home when you're married. Right? There's an intentionality about driving and seeking them out and finding where they're at and like bringing them lunch, and like there's just something that comes with the courting, right? Well, I think about that as it pertains to relationship building with people that you want to do work with. If they're out there writing, posting, speaking at things, and you're not interested in those things, you're only interested in the transaction that you might be able to create, to me that's a bit felonious. It's a bit short-sighted. It seems to me that you could use things like, I don't know, Google alerts to stay curious about people. Hey, I saw you were doing something. There's ways to kind of use tech to support it. But if you're not interested in it, it's going to be fake anyway, right? But I'm truly interested in what people do because it's people, and relationships are my thing. And a friend of mine, Jared, used to say, like, relationships are my currency, and I'm rich, right? And I think that belief comes with the idea of cultivating said relationships towards continuing day together, whatever that is, and whether it's thought partner, whether it's business, whether it's just like dad meetups, whatever it is, you got to feed a relationship. You don't just take from it, and that feeding is usually in curiosity, reaching out, asking, and I think there's an art to that people are afraid sometimes to take the step to do because they think it's Willie Loman selling vacuums. This isn't Death of a Salesman, folks. We're trying to create energy between each other, and if you're honest about it, most people resonate with it.
Yeah. People like to talk to people usually. So usually I want to get to these really actionable this week pieces of advice or steps that people can take.
Sure.
But I want to add one for you. You've got a lot of clever little phrases and sayings, and I don't want to put you on the spot where you
Sure.
know, I'm not going to ask you to do 100 or 10 even, but what are your top 1 to 3 little phrases? You've done some work to write your thoughts down and to speak and to communicate them, and those are really valuable to people. I like, you know, your 25-year-old executive handshake. That's a concept that's really powerful. I'll never forget. So, before I get to the practical stuff. Lay out some great phrases and things you've coined, and 1 to 3, maybe 10 if you haven't, but you know, at least one.
Well, one for sure is perpetual positivity pays off. Period.
Perpetual positivity pays off, baby. Okay, what else?
It's but I believe in that phrase so much because, again, it's the starter for the morning. It's the starter. That's the spark that gets it going, and you can decide to meet it or not. Connection over perfection, right? All day.
Connection over perfection.
Because
love it.
so many people want to be perfect. I never wanted to be perfect, ever.
Yeah.
They're not. I don't even know what that looks like. I am the perfect version of me. I don't understand how you make a human perfect or not, right? Like, it is what it is. My mom and dad made me. That's how I was supposed to be. This is the perfect version of me. Now, what I do with that, what they built me to do, is different, right? Mm-hmm. But to me, that's a real one. And I also just think that, like, you have to believe in the possible. And if you do not believe in the possible, I don't know what else you got. Like those 3, I think, are, and you see there's a pretty consistent theme in those things, right? Like there's no need to deviate from what I believe to be core, which is leveraging positive thought and belief in self and belief in others to get to whatever it is that we want to do or I want to do. Yeah. I know that if I approach it with negativity, I'm already at a deficit, and to me, that is not. That makes sense when you're a baseball player on deck and you have the bat weight you add to your bat to give some additional friction while you prepare. But what do you do when you go perform? You take it off and you put just the bat in your hand and you go up there and deal with that pitcher, right? You don't take the resistance in there with you to perform. You use the resistance to help you prepare, right? So look, if I continue to take that bat weight metaphor with me into my work each day, I'm making it harder for me to hit the ball. I'm making it harder for me to do things. Why? That's not the game. The game is to prepare so the outcomes are more likely to happen. Mm-hmm. And so to me, positivity is that secret sauce that I try to bring to the party. And again, not Pollyannish. However, it just, to me, it gives me a head start. It's like it's like running a race with no starting blocks. Yeah. Right? If you have starting blocks and you're running 100, you're more likely to get out quicker. If I'm just standing up straight next to you and I'm starting, I'm probably not going to start as fast. Those starter blocks are that positivity.
Beautiful. Starter blocks, positivity. And you have to believe in the positive. And I love the intentionality of you have to. Like you said, if you have nothing else if you don't. So you have to do it. You have to. Don't wait. I love that. I love those. Those are terrific. Thank you for doing that. So what I want to do to finish with the few minutes that we have left is I want you to give some hardcore, like, next steps, like, do this. Not write it down, not think about it, not theorize, but move your feet, move your hands, move your mouth, make a call, whatever it is, knock on a door. What are your best pieces of advice for a young person that wants to, A, have an amazing career in the form of life's work that really makes a difference? What should they do this week? Let's start with that one first.
Asset map your life. Sounds like a weird phrase.
Yeah,
asset map your life.
That.
I have a simple Google document just a simple document that I put on there when I was going through some, like, little bit of, like, dark days of, like, am I really built for this? Am I not? And I just put a list together of, like, if it hits the fan, who would I call? Right? If I'm feeling down on my work, who would I call? If I am curious about this field, who would I call? All you're doing is going through your phone, opening up your Rolodex and saying, oh, so my list used to start with my mother-in-law, right, on business principles. And so I put, like, a couple different titles of, like, business, life, relationships, and I just put the names of the people that I know that would pick up the call if I called them. That's it. And what that did for me was give me this like safety net of wow, if it really hits, I already wrote it down. If it hits the fan, it says call Lynn, call Charles, right? But what you start to realize is you got a bunch of people with you already, even if you're 18 or 17. Your list might not be as long as mine, but you'll have some people. And you can bifurcate that in business, life, relationship, parent. Mine goes all the way down to parenting, right? Because it's like, yo, if I have a really tough conversation I need to have about my teen daughter, who am I going to call? Well, I was a teacher for high school for years, so I don't feel that uncomfortable there. But when I had little kids, I damn sure wanted to call Miss Patrina, right? Because she understood how I could help so like that personal asset mapping, you start to realize you got a lot more in your disposal than you think. And so just write it down. And you don't have to do anything with it. You can just have it, or you could add their phone numbers next to it, or their LinkedIn's next to it, or their emails next to it and say, oh, damn, I have this list. And then you can take that list another time and say, part of my nurturing thing is, have you reached out to those people in a long time? If you haven't, you said they mattered, right? So to me, that asset mapping is a really good exercise, and it never hurts you. It's really good practice, and it helps you also cleanse a little bit of what you think you have in your 25,000 connections, right? It helps you think about a little bit of like, are those real? Can you follow up? Can those people help? Can you help? Etc. So I think that's a really good practical step folks can take, and you can get started immediately.
Yeah. This is going to bridge to the next question I have, but I think it's a brilliant idea. And one of the ways that it could be executed that's really simple, that, I'm not going to talk about referral selling because that's completely off topic, but the same mechanics in technology would work. And that is, you could take your titles and these areas of life that you just mentioned and list them all. And there's not 600, there's probably 25 or give or take.
Sure.
And you list even if it's just the first 5, instead of playing some game while you're waiting for someone, or you're waiting for something to start or anything like that, you could just type these in your favorite person for that in their notes. You could put these 20 or 25 things in your notes, in a note on your iPhone or your Android, and you could just take your time and say, okay, I'm gonna do this one today, and I'm waiting. I've got 10 minutes here. I'm just sitting here, and you could put, feel happier or whatever your first one is, and put down, find those people, look them up on your contact, and just put that phrase in the notes of their contact. And so when the bad moment comes and you type it in, they're just going to pull up on your phone, right? And if you wanted to export it, something.
Absolutely.
So the advice that I wanted to get next for the steps is, what is your 3 to 5 suggestions, maybe even one this week, even if you're 20 to 50, like, what do you think someone should do to bolster their career, their happiness and meaning and wealth? What should they do technologically as you've gotten into the technical side of things and you've been such a relationship guru? What do you think people should do this week relationship-wise?
Yeah, look, you can just it depends on how much time you have, right? If you have a bunch of time, different numbers, the amount of time you spend to it changes. But start with 5. Find 5 people that you want to learn about that are proximal to the field you're in. Simple. Just find 5. Go to LinkedIn, find 5 folks that you are interested in learning more about. Follow them, drop them a note that says, I'm interested in what you do. This is who I am. I would like to learn more about your work. What is the worst thing that'll happen to you? Yeah. They will say what?
Well, nothing.
They might respond. They might not. Yeah. They may. But that's about how you calibrate what you say.
No puppies die.
No, right? And but what it does is force you to take the action of reaching out. Because what we're trying to do is get you to take the step. When I was getting ready to take this shift from teaching to tech, there's this gentleman, Chaka Booker. He was at the Broad. He did a bunch of really cool alumni stuff. He's just a unbelievable human. And a friend of mine, my wife's, actually said, Stephen, you should talk to Chaka. He's the only person I've ever heard talk about work and life like you. And I'm like, sure, why not? Log on with Chaka, have this conversation. And we've only talked once, but he basically said, he's like, look, you're overthinking this. Go print up a bunch of job descriptions. Take away the title, take away the comp. Don't worry about the field. Look at just the descriptions of work. Highlight, take like 15 of them, print them up, highlight what you like about them. Don't look at the title. Don't look at the field. I'm printing up like surgeon, and it's like, it's like wellness practitioner. It's all these things, and I started doing this, and all these things printed up. But eventually, after I looked at all these print ups and like highlighted, the same kind of themes were manifesting, which is like facilitator, connector, learning space, impact. And I'm like, oh, well, damn, this is the job I'm about to go get. Right. And
That's
so like,
awesome.
There's another thing about like liberating yourself from the title and the field, because as soon as you see, it says you have to have 7 years of, I don't know, SQL training or something. I don't know. People stop. Why? That's a hard skill you can learn. Don't worry about that. Look at what you want to do. Do not spend so much time thinking about what you don't want to do. People over-index on what they don't want. You should try to live in what you do want. And that ties back to my belief in positivity. So that's the other one. Print up a bunch of job descriptions. I know that's probably dating myself. Bookmark them, whatever. Get the digital version and start to see what you like about types of jobs and work and like feelings. For me, autonomy is everything. I need to have autonomy over my time and how I wield it. If I have that, I am dangerous in my work. If I don't have that, I am not dangerous. I am a cog in a machine. I don't want to operate like that. I need autonomy. To get autonomy, I got to be effective, so I give space to do what I want to do. Those secrets are not even secrets, those are the things I try to employ in my work. So between the find 5 folks to reach out to on LinkedIn and just take the shot, it ties directly to my connection over perfection statement earlier, because you reach out, you can start the connection. You don't got to be perfect. It doesn't have to be perfect. AI can help you. You can try to use some things that say, write a thoughtful email that doesn't sound tone deaf. I want to be thoughtful. Whatever you need to help you feel like you can get it out. But the problem is folks usually overthink, delay, miss the moment, and don't get it out. Get it out. Get your thoughts out. Ask. Be curious. And those are pretty powerful little tricks, I think, that you can wield a little bit.
Love it. Stephen Minix, these were wise words. Thanks for being on the show today. So great.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me, man. Appreciate you.
Thank you for joining us to get leaders unstuck and thriving with their teams. You've heard a little bit about the power of bold encounters and leadership. Watch on. Go to full episodes with the iconic expert interviews at markspencercook.com/podcast. And please subscribe. My site takes you directly to YouTube video and podcast versions. Please make comments. Share this with your friends. Also, reach out to us to just brainstorm your priorities, challenges, events, or how bold encounters might help. Visit windfallpartners.com. Click the Let's Talk button without obligation and reach out. I look forward to speaking. Thank you for joining us. Now, let's lead with bold encounters today.